Hey there, Squirrel Army! We are here to discuss the Legends Legacy deck upgrade guide that we've got here. We do these whenever new precons come out. This is for the Mardu deck. And we're going to get right into discussing all about this deck. So first we better check out our face commander for this deck and see what it's kind of up to and see what we can kind of do with this deck. Alright, so Dihada, Bender of Wills, is our face commander. 5 loyalty for 4 mana, which, you know, that's okay. Legendary Planeswalker, tick up by 2, which is, you know, that's good. Up to 1 target legendary creature gains vigilance, lifelink, indestructible till next turn. So that's pretty good. This is a Legends Matters type deck. So we're going to have, and I think from what I looked briefly from the actual deck list, there's quite a few Legends already in the deck. So we'll have some, you know, targets for this. And that does help us protect Dihada here because, well, everyone's going to want to attack our Planeswalker, and we don't want to just play this bad 4-mana sorcery or whatnot that does one thing, ticks up or ticks down, and does something kind of meh for the most part, and then it's like, oh, cool, now it's gone, now we've got to pay 2 more mana to get it back. But hey, it is what it is. Sometimes that stuff does happen, or somebody just lightning bolts it or whatever. Things like that do happen, so, but anyway. Neg 3... reveal the top 4 cards of our library. We put any number of legends from among them into our hand and the rest into the graveyard. We create a treasure token for each card put into the graveyard this way. So we even want to run as many legendary lands as what we can. Obviously, we can, and legendary enchantments, artifacts, everything. So we want all the legendary things that we can get in this deck so that we'll, if we're going to neg, we're going to hit at least a couple. Of course, we can't run all legendary lands because it's not really feasible. But again, we really want to hit as many as possible in this deck so that we don't just lose lands. But even if we do lose some lands, we're still getting treasures. So that's okay. So we won't lose that much out of it. But treasures are a one-time use, whereas lands are permanent. So unless we can find ways to perhaps tap treasures for mana or whatnot, or generate more treasures than what we would normally, like with Zorn or other things like that, we really want these things also on Legends as much as possible to get the most value out of. Now, I'm going to discuss the Ultimate as well, because I think this Ultimate is pretty darn good, but always take ultimates with of Planeswalkers with a pinch of salt, because even though it's our commander and we can get it back multiple times, getting it back for 5 mana and then getting it back for 7 mana and then getting it back for 9 mana to try to get to the ult doesn't seem like the best plan ever. Now, sometimes that's kind of all you can do. All you can do is go, well, all I've got really to do is play my commander and try again, because I need to get this, or I need to get that, or I need the card draw, I need this, you know, I need the card selection, whatever. And then it'll go to 2 or whatever. So then somebody shocks it and you're like, big sad. But that's what I mean. It's always one of those things where it's like, you've got to take that ult with the biggest grains of salt, because 9 times out of 10 you don't get there with most Planeswalkers. But anyway, we gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn, untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. So it's Insurrection, but it's for all permanents, essentially, which is, you know, steal all the creatures, or mob rule, steal all the creatures, essentially, either 3 or less, or 3 or greater, or whatever it is, or 4 or greater, whatever it is. So, yeah, that's what this does. Yes, we can get some artifacts and enchantments from our opponents and whatnot, but mostly, obviously, again, we want creatures, and mostly we would probably want their commanders with this, because that will work, or any other legends that they might have, because who knows, they might be playing a few legends, because there's a lot of legends in this game and a lot of legends are good. But hey, anyway, That is what it is. But anyway, we want their legends because their legends will synergize with what we're doing as far as legendary matters, legendary tribal, and shenanigans and whatnot. So, now after we've discussed what this commander actually does, we're going to go ahead, we're going to have a look at the list on Architect, and I'm going to make some changes to it. If you're enjoying the content here, you can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing and turning on the notifications. Alrighty, so here we are. I've got the list up here on Architect. We've got a lot of good stuff, certainly. We've also got some stuff that I'm not too fond of. Like Ambition's Cost and things like that and whatnot. Things I feel like we could just do somewhat better than and whatnot. Funnily enough, we've got one enchantment, so that's interesting. I don't know why we've got Black Blade Reforged, not too sure about that. Why do we have Bontu's Monument and none of the other monuments? Or are the other monuments here and I'm just not seeing them? I know Hazaret's monument's here. So I'm assuming Aketra's monument. Oh no, there it is. I'm just not seeing it like a blind person. I don't understand why we... Oh, because they're legends. Okay, I didn't realise that they were actually legendary. That's cool. I suppose Blackblade's here because it's legendary. Day of Destiny. Oh, it's actually a legend. Wow, okay, cool. But anyway... Alright, that's cool. So there's certainly a lot here, as I sort of said. There's a lot to sort of see. There's a lot of stuff that you go, well, that's... I don't understand why that's there, but then you read a bit more, and I didn't realise that was a legend. That's interesting. But all this equipment and stuff that's kind of here, and some of the other stuff that's kind of not here... like Arcane Signet and things like that. That's an obviously good card, but it's not legendary, but we're going to have problems finding legendary mana rocks and things like that for our decks, so we're just going to have to live with having some cards that, you know, sometimes are going to be, well, it makes a mana rock if we mill it, or whatever. So we have to be okay with that. Command Sphere is not legendary, though, and neither is Hedron Archives. So I would be looking at starting with cutting those. Some other just cards that could be better cards, even if we say, well, they're not legendary. We just need those good mana rocks and whatnot rather than these more medium mana rocks. Most of our lands, I would say, are not legendary. And I will get rid of most of the tap lands that are in here as well. Actually, the mana base isn't too bad, but I might as well get... we're not in a landfall strategy, so I don't think Evolving Wilds and that is too relevant. Gaia Reach, since it's legendary, that's okay. Milikura is a legendary land. How about that? So there's a bit there as well. There's a bit of stuff here. So yeah, I'm going to need a while to go through this and see what we've got, because these are our creatures down here. And what we're really doing and whatnot. So... like, Zatolpa's good, but not that good. It's just there. Actually, this Griffin's really dumb. That Griffin's really dumb. But I'm going to need to read through a whole lot of this stuff that we've got here. See what we've got. See what I can figure out would be maybe better. And come back to it. Because there's so much here. It'll take a long time. I don't want to explain it too much in this section too much because it just is too much to go through and go through and go through, and I've got to read the cards and I don't think I don't really want to cut and edit things too much. I just want to be like, okay, cool, this is what I'm doing. Where are we at? And that. So I'll cut back here in a little bit after I've sort of fiddled around and seen what I can sort of see and do with this. Just for a sec, just as I'm going through a whole lot of stuff here to find some decent stuff to put into this deck, I just want to call you guys' attention to something, and that is this, that there's over 933 cards that are legends in our color identity. So that's a lot of legends that I have to go through just to find some stuff here that may or may not go into the deck, may or not be good. So it's sort of very difficult to find a whole bunch of stuff. I'm finding some stuff, but it's a lot of stuff. So and that's cutting it down to our colors, as I say. So I will have to refine my searches a bit here to get some more stuff that does more stuff for the bang for our buck type deal. We could look at just like mythics or rares or whatnot, because usually they're a whole lot better than commons or uncommons for the most part. But also there's some really bad mythics and really bad rares out there that we just don't want to use. And it also depends on like what we're really doing here. Like we could just like run Adeline and cards like that because it's pretty darn good. You know, and whatnot, just to get that 1/1 extra blocker. 1/1 extra attacker and whatnot to attack our opponents. But is that what we're doing? That's kind of what I want to do. But I don't know if that's what the deck wants to do. So it's hard to figure out, you know, is this just generic good value kind of card worth our time for this deck? So I'm going through a lot of stuff here, but we'll be there in a minute. So I'll show you guys the finished list and we'll go through it. All right. So after a bit of digging and finicking and whatnot, this is now the deck list that I've came up with. All the cuts that I've got for this deck are over here in the maybe board, which I'll go through in just a second. So I cut also down to 38 lands. I think the deck list was at like 39 lands or something like that. I don't think we need quite that many lands, and whatnot. So yeah, let's go through the list of what I've changed, what I've added more so, I guess, right here. And I think we'll go like top to bottom because this is already pretty confusing. There's kind of stuff everywhere when you do these sometimes. So let's look at the sorceries here. Added like Ignite the Future because I thought that's pretty good as card advantage. Plus, it's one of those things with this deck, if we put it to the graveyard, we can flash it back. So I was looking for a lot of flashback, Stoke Jumpstart, or cards that I could cast from the graveyard to, you know, bolster up this deck. Vanquish the Horde, I just felt this was a way better board wipe than what we had. It's often just going to be 2 mana to board wipe, and, you know, we can more easily recover after only spending 2 mana and whatnot. Visions of Ruin, really great card as well, because again, we can flash it back if we mill it and, you know, whatnot. But we make each of our opponents sacrifice an artifact, and for each artifact they sack, we get treasures, which is really good. So it's kind of a cantrip to a degree, or a mana effect to another extent. Added a bit more removal, swords, path, contraband livestock, and baleful mastery, just to sort of cover killing things and whatnot, so that you actually have enough kill spells. Erratic Revelation, same idea as before. We can cast it with flashback, so that's really good. Plus it's an instant, which is really useful sometimes. We'll move over to artifacts and whatnot. I cut quite a bit of stuff, but I did keep a few things as well. but I added Mirror Box because, you know, even though we don't care that much about the legend rule or whatnot, buffing our legends is something we want to do, and I feel it's very good. Put in Sword of the Animus because that can get us lands and whatnot. That's pretty useful. And added the Weatherlight because the Weatherlight helps us look at the top cards for legends, so I thought that's pretty darn good, pretty darn useful. For the lands, I cut all the other dual lands and whatnot, and of course, as I say, with dual lands and whatnot, if you have good dual lands or if you have the budget to really put in for good dual lands or fetches and things like that, put in those fetches, take out some of the basics or whatnot that are in here, or maybe Caves of Koilos and some of those other lands and whatnot, Battlefield Forge, etc. But yeah, I just added a whole bunch of basics here because that was pretty easy and it's pretty budget. I tried to look at our number of pips for each color in our deck to decide how many of each we should need. And since we were highest on white, I decided that we needed the most plains, and then we were next highest on red, so mountains was next, and then swamps came after that. So that's where we kind of landed up with that. Let's quickly go through the creatures as well, because not a huge amount changed here, I don't think. From what I remember, but certainly some stuff did change. Captain Liana Porter, or however you say her name, whenever we attack, we exile the top X cards, and we get to play them this turn. They also cost less, where X is the number of players being attacked this turn. So it does two things for us. It gives us card advantage. It's a legend, helps us cast things easier, give us some ramp. Delina can copy any really useful creature that we have, and it's a non-legendary copy. And I don't like the dice rolling aspect of this, but I still think it's a really good card. Eroes, just giving all of our stuff basically indestructible when they're attacking, plus menace, really useful. There's still some badder cards in here that I wish we could take out, but still we couldn't do it. I couldn't do it all. Cloth, however you say his name, Fury of Avernus. Whenever we attack, first attack, we get an additional attack phase. We're an aggro deck for the most part. We need to hit people with our creatures to win, and that's pretty useful for helping us hit our opponents multiple times in a game. Lelia or Lelia, however you say her name, more card advantage, more exile-based card advantage and card selection and whatnot. She also gets buffed by however many cards we put into exile, and we're putting lots of more cards into exile now, so I thought that's useful. More ag just buffs all of our creatures when we attack. Then we get a landfall. We can get an additional combat. So then we'll get even more buffs, so that's really useful. I added the other Odric. Basically, with this Odric, when we attack with 4 or more creatures, or 3 other creatures with him, basically our creatures are unblockable. So that's really darn good. So I thought that should go in. Piru, I thought, well, we're a legendary tribal, so it's not really going to affect us. So I thought that's really useful. What else did I put in here? Actually, this weird thing. That's what I put in here. When Yamanji, whatever it's called, whenever a legendary permanent other than this thing is put into a graveyard from play, return that card to its owner's hand. So we're playing lots of legends. Yes, our opponents are playing maybe some legends as well, so they might get the benefit as well. But for the most part, we're going to get more benefit out of it than what our opponents are. So I thought that seems really cool, and it fits to the theme that we're on. So I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. All right, so we'll go through some of the cuts. It wasn't too interesting for the most part. I cut Alessia because I felt like we don't have a huge amount of 3 or less creatures or 2 or less creatures that we really want to bring back. And if we do, for the most part, they're just going to die in combat. So it's not really worth the time. I felt like some of these, like ambitions, cost, and whatnot, the other card draw effects weren't worth our time, especially since I wanted more flashback and whatnot. Pilgrim, I wasn't really sold on it. It's a lot of mana investment to do anything, and I just didn't think it was worth our time. Bedevil, it's okay removal, but I find that, you know, we don't really need that. We really just need, you know, either to kill the things that we need to kill and move on or whatever. And 3 mana is just a little bit too much for this kind of removal. Blackbreed Reforged, it is a good card, but the thing is it only buffs up one thing, and we really want to go wide and have a whole bunch of threats. Atali, I guess it's one of those cards. You either love it or you hate it. Like, I don't really like it, and I just think that it's too random to a degree, and it doesn't give us anything else kind of thing. Plus, it has to attack, whereas, like, Commander Deporter or whatever her name is, she doesn't have to attack. It's just whenever you attack, which is really useful. Plus, it also gives us that mana discount on spells. So I thought, well, there's just better cards, and we need to make room for better cards, and whatnot. Hedron Archive, not too amazing. The Pendant, I thought that's kind of interesting, but like it's not going to come up enough, I don't think. Hero's Downfall, just bad removal. The Wrath, I just felt like it's a bit much, and we don't need to really gain that much life, and just trying to split our manas too much. The District, I just felt like even if we get a 0 mana 3/3 on a land, how relevant is that 3/3? It's not very relevant at all. Mortify, just not that amazing. Night's Whisper, not that amazing. We really want things to make sure that we're going to hit them and get value off them, even if we mill them. So again, we want that that card draw to be able to have flashback and things like that. Same with Read the Bones. And again, like Reliquary Tower, we're not drawing that many cards, realistically, so we just don't need it. We don't need it. Sword of the Chosen, kind of a really weird effect that kind of buffs one thing, and that's okay, but again, we're going really wide. We really want to buff as many things as what we possibly can, not just one thing. Like, we can buff the thing that got through, or whatever, a thing that got through, but again, you know, if we're still killing somebody, the +2/+2 is kind of irrelevant. Tajik, it only helps itself. We want things that help our entire game plan, not just itself. Bad Scrylands, get rid of them. Again, more equipment that just helps one creature. We really want to help all creatures. Thrill of Possibility, just, again, I wanted more flashback stuff. Zatulpa, big, bad, scary thing, but just really doesn't do enough. Like, a lot of the other stuff that I sort of added really, like, helps out the rest of the game plan and gives you a whole lot more stuff to play with. There's still a couple cards that are in here that aren't the best or aren't that amazing, but again, you've got some slim pickings to agree, and again, I'm not looking at some of the cards perhaps from the new set because they haven't revealed them all and whatnot at time of filming, and I really can't because they usually don't come out for weeks and weeks and weeks properly. They don't show up and you can't find them and all of that, so it is what it is. We're at this point where we are, and I wanted to get this deck out as quickly as possible. So those are the suggestions that I have for this deck and what I've gone through to sort of put it all together, and I hope people like it. I hope people find this deck interesting. I found it interesting. I think this is a much more interesting and complete deck in terms of what it's doing. in comparison to the 5-color deck, though that's going to have 5 colors. So we're going to have a lot of choices with that, but we certainly also are going to be limited in certain ways as well with that deck. But still, very interesting. But anyway, guys, you can let me know what you guys think of this deck and this build and whatnot. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond to any and all comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys down there in the comments. But yeah, if I don't see you down there in the comments, I'll see you in the next one.